So I want us to start with corrections of the previous work. The previous work I had given you, number one was a tank can be filled separately. A tank can be filled separately by taps P and Q in 6 minutes and 12 minutes respectively. Tap R can empty the same tank in 5 minutes. Find how long it will take to fill this tank if the taps are opened at once when the tank is empty. So in this question, like we agreed the other time, you realize one tank is filling and the other tank is taking away the water, or is an outlet. So what do? We agreed in that case we should subtract. We agreed in that case we should do what? Subtract. So I wrote the corrections here. As you can see, 1 over T is equal to 1 over 6. One over 6, that is for the tank that is filling, that is for the tap that is filling the tank. 1 over 6 plus another tap which is Q that is filling the tank. It is 1 over 6 plus 1 out of 12. Now tap R can empty the same tank in 5 minutes. That means the one that is emptying we should subtract. That's what we agreed. So overall we are going to have 1 over T equal to 1 over 6 plus 1 out of 12, and then we subtract 1 out of 5, and the LCM here is 60. 60 divided by 6 we get 10. 10 times 1 it is 10. Then 60 divided by 12 we get 5. 5 times 1 is 5. Again 60 divided by 5 we get 12. 12 times 1, the answer is 12. So finally we get 1 over T, which is 3 out of 60, and when we cross multiply we get 3T equal to 60, and that means that T is equal to 20 after dividing by 3 both sides. So many of you made a mistake here. When you reached there, you were saying that T is equal to 30. I don't know where you get 30, but 60 divided by 3, the answer here was 20. I don't know if there is any question on that part, but most of you passed it. That was good. Now we have Tom and Bob, and they take 12 days when they are working together to clear some garden. So we have Tom and Bob, and they take 12 days when they are working together to clear the garden. But it takes 30 days for Tom alone to clear the garden. Find how long it takes Bob alone to clear this garden. So what should we do in this case? When they are combined together, they take 12 days. That means 1 out of T, which we don't know, that is for Bob. So we don't know the time Bob takes, but we know that when they are working together, they take 1 over 12. So it means 1 out of 12, when they are working together, the rate at which they clear the land when they are working together is 1 out of 12. So 1 out of 12 should be equal to 1 out of 30, which is for Tom, and we should add the one for Bob, which is now going to be 1 out of T that we don't know. So we don't know the time taken by Bob, but we know the time when they are all working together, and we also know the time that is taken by Tom alone. So this is how we are supposed to do this. This is the rate at which they clear the land when they are working together, and that is 1 out of 12. It is equal to, this is the rate for Tom. It takes 30 days, 1 out of 30 plus the rate for Bob, which we don't know, so we rate it to be T, so it becomes 1 out of T. And when we make 1 out of T the subject, it means 1 out of 30 cross equal signs, and it becomes 1 out of 12 minus 1 out of 30, which is equal to, the LCM is 60. 60 divided by 12, the answer is 5. And 60 divided by 30, the answer is 2. So it becomes 5 minus 2, which is 3 out of 10. I mean out of 60. And in the same way, when we cross multiply and divide by 3, we get 20 as the answer. And someone is sending messages here. Okay. So I think number 1 and 2 are clear as far as the correction is concerned. Then we had this number also. Shillings 12,000 is shared among P, Q, and R. Takes 1/5 of it. Then Q takes 1 out of 6 of the remainder, and R takes what is left. So whatever is left is the one taken by R. We had done questions of this kind in our previous lesson when we were doing corrections. So if P takes 1 over 5 or a fifth, and Q takes 1 over 6 of a sixth of the remainder, the first thing we should do first is to get the remainder after P has taken 1 out of 5. So when P takes 1 out of 5, the remainder will be a whole number, which is 1. 1 minus 1 out of 5, and it gives us the answer as 4 out of 5. So this is what remains after P has taken 1 out of 5. But we are informed that Q takes 1/60 of the remainder. So whatever Q is going to take will be 1 out of 6 times the remainder, which is 4 out of 5. I think you are getting me there. That means Q takes 4 out of 3. The question tells us further that R takes what is left. So when P takes 1 out of 5 and Q takes 4 out of 30, R takes what is remaining. So the whole fraction, or what is there, is a whole number, and it is 1. So R takes 1 minus, we now add what was taken by P and Q. So it is 1 out of 5 plus 4 out of 30. And what does it give us? It gives us, the LCM is 30. 30 divided by 5, the answer is 6. And 30 divided by 30, the answer is 1 times 4, which is 4. and it ends up giving us the fraction as 2 out of 3. Many of you got this, but there were those few fellows who failed it. So that was it. That is how we are supposed to go about that. Then again, many of you made a mistake on this number 4. Number 4, I told you, and I'm still insisting, please let us always first deal with the numerator, then we also get the denominator, and after that we divide. There we shall make our work very simple. For example, the numerator is supposed to be, when we convert this improper fraction, it is 3 over 2. I think this step you are with me and you agree this becomes 25 out of 3, and we divide by 5 out of 2. When we apply our BODMAS, we shall begin by bracket, and with bracket, and what is in bracket is 25 out of 3. So since we are dividing, we agreed we multiply by the reciprocal, and this is what I did there. And I have 3 over 2, this one here, because by 5, this is 1, by 5, it is 5, and 5 times 2, it is 10. 10 out of 3. I am not crossing because I want you to see clearly the factors there. So when I subtract, the LCM is 6, and the answer, many of you did not put this negative. I don't know why you think that when you get a negative answer, you are wrong. When you get fraction, you fear to write. When you get a negative answer, you still fear to write. Sometimes those answers are correct. So 9 minus 20, the answer is negative 11 out of 6. That was for the numerator. And then the denominator, it is clear, this is 6 out of 5. We begin with the bracket. What is in bracket is addition, and the LCM is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. That is 15. 12 divided by 3 is 5, is 4, times 5 is 20, and it gives us 35 out of 5. Then we multiply it. This is what is in the bracket here. What is in the bracket is 35 out of 12. So 6 out of 5 times the answer here, or times 35 out of 12, we are getting the answer as 7 over 2. So numerator out of denominator, finally, we get the answer as negative 11 out of 12. I don't know if there is any question about the previous work. The corrections are there. If there are no questions, we proceed to another thing. Is there anyone having a challenge on this part? Asimia, you have unmuted. Do you have a question?
No.
Is Camila online? So this is where we are.
Yes,
now.
please.
Camila, you have no question, eh? This is where we are now.
Yes, teacher.
We are on decimals, decimal numbers. This is very simple work that you did from your primary, but we need to remind ourselves about what decimal numbers are. So definition, if someone asked you what is a decimal number, you are saying a decimal number is a number with a decimal point, e.g. 1.75. Now, we count the decimal places by counting the number of digits after the decimal point. And maybe to remind you, you remember that when we are reading such a number, we don't say 1.75, no. When there is a decimal point, we read digit per digit. So this is 1.75. So a decimal number is a number with a decimal point, e.g. I know some of you would have said this is 1.75, which is wrong. This is 1.75. Is a decimal number and it is connected to two decimal places. Why am I saying it is connected to two decimal places? Because there are only 2 digits after the decimal number. Another point that is important is here. To convert a fraction to a decimal, we divide the denominator by the numerator. For example, if I have this fraction, which is a half, to convert it to decimal, I get 1 divided by 2, and the answer is 0.5. If I have 4 divided by 11, and I'm converting it to a decimal, I just get 4. I divide it by 11, and the answer is 0.363636.
Teacher, repeat for 1 out of 2.
1 out of 2, it is the same as 1. We are saying to convert a fraction to a decimal, divide the numerator. The numerator here is 1, and the denominator is 2. So we get 1 and divide by 2. When you get 1 divided by 2, even when you use your calculator or long division, you are going to get the answer as 0.5. Then 4 out of 11, it is the same as 4 divided by 11, and the answer is 0.363636. When you look at such a number, I don't know what comes into your mind, if you remember, but it means one number is repeating itself, and in that case we say that it is a recurring fraction. Yes, I mean a recurring decimal. So the recurring number is 36, but we shall reach there. Let us go slowly. A decimal number can be exact or inexact. An exact decimal or terminating decimal is a decimal that ends. You have ever used your calculator, then you get some decimal number which does not end on the calculator. There are very many digits. By the way, even what is the last digit on the calculator is not the last one, but it is because the calculator's capacity just ends on 10 digits. But it means that decimal continues. So we call that a terminating decimal. No, that one is an inexact decimal, the one that does not end. Then the one that ends, for example, when I get 1 divided by 2 and the answer is 0.5, there is no other thing. This one is an exact decimal. It has ended. So this decimal can be converted into fractions as follows. The exact decimal, or terminating decimal, can be converted to a fraction as follows. What do? We get 0.0. For example, we get the decimal and divide it by 1. Then we multiply both on top and bottom, or the numerator and the denominator. We multiply by 10 for every number after the decimal point. What does that mean? E.g., if we have 0.25, we say it is 0.25 divided by 1. But there are 2 digits after the decimal point. So that's why we are saying multiply by 10 for every number after the decimal point. So after 2, we multiply by 10. Then for 5, we also multiply by 10. So at the end, we end up multiplying by 100. So we multiply by 100 up and down, and the answer we get is 25 out of 100, because when you multiply 0.25, every time you multiply by 10, the decimal point moves. I think you remember that. and every time you multiply by 10, it again moves. So the answer here is 25 out of 100. 0.375. Now this means there are 3 digits after the decimal point, so we shall multiply by 1000. 0.375 out of 1, we multiply by 1000, and it gives us 375 divided by 1000, and the answer is 15 out of 40, which is 3 out of 8. To convert fractions into recurring decimals, we can also use long division. To convert fractions into recurring decimals, we can also use long division. What do I mean? E.g., we have 2 out of 9. 2 out of 9, we divide by, we get 2. At first I had 2, and we are dividing it by 9. 2 divided by 9, it is practically impossible. So what we do, we add a 0, and when we add a 0, we also put 0 point here. Okay? Then we get 20 divided by 9. The answer is we get 2. Okay? But there is some remainder. We get 2. And that 2 is this one. So we get that 2 times 9, it gives us 18. We subtract. When we subtract 20 divided by 18, the answer is 2 again. But 2 cannot be divided by 9. So I add another 0 to make it 20 divided by 9, it is still 2. So you see, this is going to continue. You'll continue getting 2 until you get tired. So when we look at this one is 2 whole number and 1 out of 6. We first convert this mixed fraction to an improper fraction. And what do we get there? It becomes 2 times 6, which is 12, plus 1, it is 13 out of 6. 13 divided by 6, the answer is 2. Then 2 times 6, we get 12. Then 13 minus 12, we get 1. There is subtraction here. 13 minus 12, we get 1. Now 1 cannot be divisible by 6. What we do, we add 0, and then we put here a decimal point to make it 10. 10 divided by 6, the answer is 1. This is our 1. Then 1 times 6, the answer is 6. When we subtract, we get 4. 4 cannot be divisible by 6 again, so we add a 0 to make it 40. And 40 divided by 6, the answer is 6. That goes in, and 6 times 6, it gives us 36. When we subtract, we get 4. So here we continue getting 4 and adding a 0 and getting 6 like that. So that is how we can convert fractions into recurring decimals. Addition and subtraction of decimals. To add or subtract decimal numbers, line up the decimal points and then work out. E.g., we are saying without using a calculator, evaluate. When we say without using a calculator, it means we want to see all your working. You want to see all your working, so you should not leave any working behind. We have 308.6, and we are adding 20.475, and we are also adding 1.36. So that means we have 308.6. So the decimal point, we make sure that they are in the decimal points, we make sure that they are in one line. So 20.475, this is our 20. 0.475. Then 1.36, our one is there, then the decimal point is there. We make sure that they are in the same line. Then where there were gaps, we can put their zeros. After all, a zero that comes after a decimal point does not count, it does not matter. So we put it there to fill the space. And when we add, this is 5, this is 13, we write 3 and bring 1 here to make it 7. 7 plus 4 is 11, plus 3, 14. We write 4 and bring 1 here to make it 9. 9 plus 1, it is 10. We write 0. Then this one will become 3, and that is the answer. Simple as that. Without using a calculator, this one is also simple. We get 13.79. We subtract 12. We make sure the decimal points are in one line. Yes. Make sure the decimal points are in one line. That one is very simple. I have multiplication and division of decimals. How do we multiply and divide decimals? What is the important rule that we need to keep? To multiply and divide decimals, decimal numbers, express the decimal numbers in fractions. Express the decimal numbers in fractions, then work out. So when we are dividing and multiplying decimals, we need to express the decimal numbers into fractions, and then we multiply and divide accordingly. For example, 0.5, when we change it to fraction, the way we did the other time, we say it is 0.5 out of 1, then we multiply by 10 up and down, so it becomes 5 out of 10, and these are 2 digits or decimal places, so this is 8 out of 100. You still remember how we multiply fractions, numerators alone and denominators alone. So this becomes 5 times 8, which is 40, and we are dividing it by 1,000. That becomes 40 out of 1,000, which is 0.04. That's the answer. Because this 0 will cancel with the 1 on 40, and 4 out of 100, clearly the answer is 0.04. When you divide using wrong division or a calculator there. Part B, I have this simple number, 0.032. I'm dividing it by 0.116. 0.032, when you convert it to fraction, it becomes 32 divided by 1,000. Then divide it by, this is 16 out of 100. And I will multiply by the reciprocal, which is 32 out of 1,000 times 100 out of 16. These 2 zeros will cancel with this. Then by 16, this is 1. By 16, this is 2. And my answer is 2 out of 10. And it ends up giving me 0.2. More examples. Now, in this example here, we are asking you to find the square root of a decimal number. But we are saying you should not use a calculator. Pay attention here. What do you do in that case? You will say you are going to first express 0.09 in a fraction, and you agree with me, after multiplying by 100, because these are 2 decimal places, multiply by 100. Remember, you had said it is over 1, and you also multiply by 100 on the numerator, on the denominator, sorry, and the answer we get is 9 out of 100 as a fraction. So we get the errors, we get the square root of 9 out of 100. So the square root of 9 out of 100 is the same as getting the square root of each individual number. The square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 100 is 10. So that ends up giving us 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10, it is the same as 0.3, and that is our answer. Then we need to get the LCM of 0.0081. 0.0081, when we change it to a fraction, we multiply by 10,000 up and down, we get 81 out of 10,000. So we get the square root of 81, it is 9, and the square root of 10,000 is 100, and we end up getting 0.09 as the answer, as the square root, and that's where it ends. So I don't know if there are any questions from you on this operation of decimals. That means multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division of decimal numbers. I'm taking questions from you if they are there. Anyone with a question? Now, this is part of the assignment. What you do, like on such a number, convert every number to a decimal, I mean a fraction, then you multiply. This one first convert to fraction, even this one first convert to fraction, then you multiply. Or you first get the square root of this number alone, then you get the square root of this number, and then after you multiply them together. So that's all we wanted to cover today. But for those people who had failed the correction, who had failed the previous work, for you should begin with corrections. So I'm going to let you go. You begin with corrections, then after you write these notes, and finally you do this assignment, and it should be handed in before 11. That means you have around 1 hour to write these little notes and hand in by. But when you are handing in, don't hand in the notes. I don't need the notes. That's what many of you have been doing. Just hand in the work. And the other thing, many of you, you don't want to use PDF. I requested you to hand in a PDF. A PDF is easy to mark and it saves time. But if you don't use a PDF, don't take very many pictures. Don't write very many pages. Write a few pages, like just 2 pages. They should be the ones you should send. Don't send too much pages. They waste a lot of my time. And they take long to open when the internet is slow. That is the only reason I've been telling you to use PDF.